Hello guys, what is up? I hope you are doing alright, because learning while your mind is wandering is extremely hard and my intent is to teach in this video. If you don't plan on learning anything, I still appreciate you fact checking me and letting me know if anything is wrong. Just put it in the comments below if I miss anything and let's just get started right away. First off, warrior DPS is mainly about gear. When they achieve 100% armor penetration, their damage skyrockets like every armor penetration class in 3.3.5. Now let's take a moment to see what the caps are that we need to achieve dope ass DPS. We'll need all of these stats capped, no exceptions. 8% hit rating, this includes the Draenei ratio and the 3% hit rating from the talents, precision. So effectively we only need 5% without the Draenei or 4% with the Draenei. After hit rating comes the expertise. We need 26 on both main hand and off hand, so yeah, 26. Now that we can actually hit the bad guys, let's figure out how to hit them as hard as possible, and that is where the damn near broken armor penetration comes in. There are a bunch of armor penetration items and you will need a lot of them since we need 1400 armor penetration. That caps it out at 100%. Just a quick note here, you cannot go for 95% armor penetration and expect Fairy Fire to give you the last 5%. That is not how it is calculated. Just go for 100% armor penetration. After the hit rating, expertise and armor penetration, you are basically done with mandatory stats that we need to cap out. So we can go full ham on the strength. This is the point where Fury Warrior starts to outscale a lot of the opposition, especially classes that struggle with getting their required caps, such as Enhancement Shamans or Feral Druids. So after you cap hit rating, cap expertise. After you cap expertise, cap armor penetration. When that is done, start stacking strength. As far as talent trees go, it's not that difficult for a warrior. There are some choices to be made, such as do I need more hit rating? Do I want to reset my intercept? I would say yes to both if I need hit rating and I just like intercepting. I will leave my own armory link in the description below, so feel free to check my build out and use it if you want to. And now on to how to DPS. Before we begin with the rotation or the opener, let's take a look at some of the macros you need and some of the macros you should need. The macros that I 100% cannot live without are these: /cast battle stance, /cast defensive stand, /cast berserker stance. These three macros will allow you to keybind the swapping of stances. If you are going to make any kind of play that requires you to whip out the shield, you need to be able to do it fast, and clicking with your mouse is just not that fast. The next set of macros focuses heavily on movement. /cast, open bracket, add mouse over, close bracket, charge, /cast, open bracket, add mouse over, close bracket, intervene, /, open bracket, add mouse over, close bracket, intercept. You can alternatively remove the add mouse over, but I really like it since it removes an additional click while you are trying to make a play, and I think these are all worth the have. Now I've said if you swap to your shield, you gotta be fast. But what that means is that you need another macro to help you out to do this faster. / equip slot 17 Ice Crown Glacial Wall. And in the second line you want / equip slot 17 Glorenzulk High Blade of the Silver Hand. Obviously you want to remove my shield and my offhand weapon and replace it with the name of your offhand and your shield. This will allow you to swap from your sword to your shield with the click of one button. It's an absolutely legendary macro. And as far as DPS macros go, well, warrior isn't too complicated, so you don't need to worry. I will advise a / cancel aura hand of protection macro on at least one of your abilities though. There are some miscreant verminous guns on any server, and Warmane is a victim of society just as any server. I said that considering that some people may not want to have the cancel aura part in this macro, but just like I said, it's a good idea to have it. Just don't remove the hand of protection when you actually need to keep it. And the macro goes as / cast heroic strike, / cancel aura hand of protection, / use Aldriana's gloves of secrecy. The last line in this macro will activate my engineering gloves on cooldown since we spam heroic strike or cleave at any point. If you also have engineering, you can bind it like this as well, or you can use them manually. Alright, that's it for the macros. Remember to comment any useful macros if you think I missed something. Now let's take a look at the brunt of the information, the reason why you've YouTubed for a guide, and here it is. A nice little disclaimer first though. Everything in World of Warcraft is relevant, especially in Wrath of the Lich King, since Blizzard said fuck uniqueness when Kata came around. But for example, if you don't have heroism, DPS will suffer. There are several more examples, but the point is, your DPS is subjective to the raid's composition, your RNG, your MS or ping, and several more things. So don't expect to always do the same damage. Learn what gives you damage and keep growing as a DPS. That's the best advice I can give you. However, we need something more specific to write in the script, so let's just do that, shall we? Our main spell is... yeah, but I forgot glyphs. Here they are. Our main damage spell is Bloodthirst, followed by Heroic Throw, Whirlwind, and after that Cleave or Heroic Strike. I put Cleave and Heroic Strike so low on the list because they have the potential to rage starve you, especially if you are undergeared. Let's stick to the topic of rage for just a moment and talk about how we handle it. Now there seemingly was a golden rule even since before I was around, and that's like early 2010, so damn, that rules hold. The rule said if you are at or below 50 rage, do not Heroic Strike. Now, I think that is wrong. I set the throttle at 30 rage. Instead, that allows me to still queue up a Heroic Strike and use a Bloodthirst before rage starving. Another thing to note about rage is that you get rage for taking damage. And yes, I am actually telling you to stand in the fire. If it doesn't murder you or put too much of a strain on the healers, you know, a great example of where you can rage hawk is on Lady Death Whisperers, Death and Decay. It barely does any damage, but it's enough to give you a steady supply of rage. Alright, so I hope you realize that rage is an important factor in a warrior's DPS. It can take a while to get used to its mechanics, but don't worry about it too much. With time comes experience. Let's take a step back and continue to talk about what we were talking about, DPS. The rotation is not a rotation at all really, it's more like a priority list. If your rage is above 30, Heroic Strike. Bloodthirst, First Slam, Heroic Throw, Whirlwind, Second Slam, Victory Rush, Thunder Armor, Execute, Demoralizing Shout. And that is it, honestly. As per any DPS, you want to spend every single global cooldown. However, I think anyone can push these buttons, especially at best in slot when rage becomes way less of an issue. And you are gonna have a good time just smashing your keyboard until you are first on DPS. See, I don't think DPS solely comes from standing still and smashing the keyboard, well, except in Deppering Sourfang, but you know, less said about that polls the better. The real way to get more DPS than other people, which is the point of this video, is often not in being able to follow a simple priority list, it's in positioning yourself so Cleave hits 4 targets, it's using Heroic Strike when you got all your cooldowns up, it's about knowing when to pop a cooldown and when not to pop it. A great example is Blood Queen Lanotel. Right after your 2-minute cooldowns have refreshed since the burst phase of the start of the fight, she flies into the air and completely, she just ignores the 2-minute cooldowns from the melees because she can't get hit. In fact, there is not much to say about DPSing as a warrior other than what I've told you so far. It helps a great deal to have the right add-ons, something to track Thunder Armor with, track your trinket timers. Tracking trinket timers, yeah, try saying that 5 times in a row. It's always a great idea to do those things in my opinion. But that's really it. I got a few tips and tricks, but that chapter comes after the utility chapter. Speaking of, warriors might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you're thinking about utility spells, but they actually have quite a few really good spells to provide that utility. I already mentioned Thunder Armor a few times, and yes, it is amazing, and yes, you should use it. I'm pretty sure the way that its ARP is calculated, it even helps the warrior's DPS, even at 100% armor penetration. But it is for sure helping any class that doesn't stack a significant amount of armor penetration, such as Unholy Death Knights and Retri Paladins. Another spell warriors have is Demoralizing Shout. It is the same effect, albeit stronger or weaker depending on your own and the other person's talent tree. It's the same spell such as Demoralizing Roar from the Druid, Curse of Weakness from the Warlock, and Vindication from the Paladins. The attack power reduction is especially effective against tank killer bosses such as the Lich King and Vestergaard. Not last but also not least, we've got tanking. I know it's not an ability that can save the raid, but I remember a 10-man Bane run many years ago when Judgment of Justice still slowed down the Lich King. I charged the Shambling, used my AoE taunt to take all of the off-tank's mobs while I tanked the ads till the off-tank got combat rest, and I managed to stop a raid wipe like that. This is where the macros we talked about in the start really come in. They allowed me to react lightning fast, to use my shield, my charge and my defensive stance. All of them were macroed. We've got a few more shouts that I'll make into a singular entity right now. Battle Shout and Commanding Shout raise attack power and max health respectively. Their durations can be increased with the Commanding Presence talent and their respective minor glyphs. Another shout is Intimidating Shout. It is an AoE fear. But other than stopping the annoying archer at the VDW ad pool and maybe fearing the Deathbringer Sourfang ads, I have found very little use for it in PvE. In fact, if you find a good use for it in ICC or Ruby Sanctum, I would love to read that in the comments. The last shout warriors have is Piercing Howl. It is a talent on the third row of the Fury tree. It allows you to AoE slow everything by 50% within 10 yards. This is massively useful for many things, including slowing down the Valkyrs on the Lich King encounter. And last but not least, Intervene. Intervene is so criminally underused that it makes me physically ill. Okay, maybe not that much, but it is underused. Imagine a world where people ask for Hand of Salvations but don't realize that Intervene is mathematically stronger. That is all the utility I can think of right now. I think it's more than people give Fury Warriors credit for. They reduce armor, they reduce attack speed, movement speed, they can taunt 3 times. Once AoE, once Mocking Blow and of course the regular taunt. I have to think that at some point warriors realize the amount of utility they can provide to the raid and act accordingly. They have a lot of niche utility like the Intervene threat reduction and some less niche like Commanding Shout and Sunder Armor. We've talked about a lot so far, but I got a few tips and tricks up my sleeve, so let's hop into the final chapter, tips and tricks. Rage management. Like I've said before, rage is a big part of your DPS, especially when you are low geared. In order to get more, you can take a little bit of damage. Try not doing this until you know your limits, of course. I don't want you to die and blame it on me. Alright, so this is a big one that doesn't really add much to your effective DPS in most cases. However, it can put an absolute rocket pack to your back and launch you into the next stratosphere of DPS. By using your AoE taunt on several small mobs whilst retaliation is up, you can get 20 times 8 to 12k damage per second. The place where I sometimes do this is Merogar. If he spins way out into nowhere, and you have some time before you can actually reach him to charge you, just pop into battle stance, pop retaliation, pop back into berserker stance, intercept, and you'll have a nice bit of damage right there. Or the Lich King's Drudge Ghouls. Going from phase 1 into the transition phase, there tends to be ghouls alive. If you AoE taunt those and put your retaliation on them, you're gonna see a massive DPS increase. It is elementary for high-end DPSers to track their trinkets. However, I did not make this video specifically for high-end DPSers, and this might be new news to you. You can use a lot of add-ons such as Need to Know, Tell Me When, and I'm pretty sure a lot more exist. My point is, if you like having your starting burst, you need to understand you can replicate it by properly timing your cooldowns to match your trinkets. If you are familiar with the raid group you are in and you know when heroism will be popped, you can keep your second rotation of cooldowns for that moment, which is a massive DPS increase. Especially in high-end guilds where the boss often dies right when you get your second rotation of cooldowns or right before that, usually because the bosses only take about 2 or 3 minutes. For example, with a marksman hunter, you could keep your readiness and get a double kill shot instead of just a double chimera aim shot. Deep wound layers. Deep Wound acts similar to Ignite. Well, not really, and I doubt I can explain it better to you than this paragraph of text can that I found online. So how about I drop that into the comment section down below so you can take your time to read it if I seemed confused while I explained this. If you don't want to bother with the comment section, TLDR, if you crit 5 consecutive crits within 2 seconds, your average deep wound stick will be higher than if you have 5 crits that happen non-consecutively. Based on this, you will want to learn what your swing timer is and try to combine your Heroic Strike and Bloodthirst or Whirlwind for maximum deep wounds damage output. Also, this is why Recklessness should be popped in a very specific way. you'll want the first Recklessness stack to be a Heroic Strike, followed up by an instant Bloodthirst to maximize deep wounds damage. Then with the last remaining Recklessness stack, you'll want to use it on Whirlwind, so both the main hand and offhand benefit from the damage boost and guaranteed crit from Recklessness. Armor Potion as a DPS? Why yes! With talent Armored to the Teeth, you get 3 attack power for every 108 armor, so that's like... Tim! Help! Tim! What's 3 attack power for every 108 armor if an armor potion gives you 3.5k armor?
Fucking hell, dude. Can't you write those numbers to me? Fuck. Okay.
Do you know more tips and tricks? Same as before, I'd love to see people helping each other out in the comment section, especially on a guide video such as this. Now that you know all the information that I know, it is time to put it up to the test. I'm gonna assume you have tier 10. If you don't, just get it ASAP, since it is best in slot gear and the set bonuses are amazing. Let's start off by checking if we have all the buffs available to us. If that is the case, get ready for the pull timer. There is yet another trick with the armor potion. If you use it an entire minute before the boss pull, you can use a potion of speed while still under the effect from the last minute of the first potion. Then, when that runs out, you'll be able to refresh the armor potion effect if you use the potion of speed right before the boss pulled and got the 1 minute timer on the potion of speed. Alright, so ready up, DBM pull, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We start off with a basic attack from our main hand. This allows us to have enough rage to use our first Bloodthirst, which should be used instantly after the basic attack to maximize deep wounds damage. When your global cooldown allows it, use Death Wish and one more Heroic Strike. Have it land before popping Recklessness, and now we'll do what we talked about in the tips and tricks section. 1 Bloodthirst, 1 Heroic Strike or Cleave, and the last stack should be used on Whirlwind. From this point on, you can stick to our standard DPS priority list of Heroic Strike when your rage is above 30 of course, Bloodthirst, Heroic Throw, the second slam of your double slam proc from tier 10, since its lower global cooldown will allow you to get more DPS, Whirlwind, first slam, Victory Rush, Thunder Armor, Demoralizing Shout. That's your priority list. I will type it out so it's nice and there right on your screen for you. That's it. That is everything I've got on Fury Warriors that I can think of for now. Remember that this is only my opinion, and believe it or not, after 10 years I still regularly make mistakes, so I urge you to second guess my every word. Only then will you truly learn from any of it. As always, thank you guys to the moon and beyond for the support. I mean, look at how many people. Damn! And I'll get out of here. Track your trinket something to track Thunder Armor with. Tracking trinket